Hey, everybody. It's Cindy Baker, ADHD coach, and I am so excited to be with you. It's another episode of Monday Night Live in the Facebook group for adults with ADHD. And even though the title is Monday Night Live, I am actually not live. I am recording this ahead of time. So I will go back and read the comments. So if you are jumping on live, do say hi in the chat. And if you're watching the replay, just say replay or something like that. I'd love to know where you're from. But I am doing another episode of basically answering questions. So people have asked me questions, people have sent in questions. And so I'm going to answer some of those. So if you have more questions after this, put them in the chat. And I'll go back and read those. But the first question is, what is involved in getting tested for ADHD as an adult? So a lot of people only learn that they have ADHD when they become adults. And some find out after their children receive the diagnosis and they become educated about the condition. And then they also realize that they have it. And so for other people, the symptoms just finally outpace their coping skills, and they cause significant enough problems in their daily life that they go ahead and seek help. So if you recognize the signs and symptoms of ADHD in yourself, go ahead and schedule a visit with a mental health professional for an assessment. And once you make that initial appointment, it is totally normal to feel nervous. But if you know what to expect, then the process for evaluating ADHD, it's not really confusing or scary. And so I'll tell you a little bit about it. I mean, many professionals will start by asking you to fill out and return a questionnaire before your evaluation. And I remember mine was very long, but it's just asking you questions about your history and your different behaviors and how you feel about things. And you'll probably be asked to name somebody close to you, like a family member who would also take part in some of the evaluations. So maybe they would fill out, like you would fill out the questionnaire for yourself, and then they would fill it out for you of what they observe. And then to determine if you have ADHD, you can expect a specialist conducting the evaluation to do really any of these things. They'll ask you about your symptoms, including how long they've been bothering you and any problems that they've caused in the past. They'll administer ADHD tests like symptom checklist and attention span tests. So they might ask you to repeat back a series of numbers or something like that to see if you were paying attention. And so talk to family members or somebody close to you about your symptoms. They might want to talk to them as well. They'll probably give you a medical exam to rule out other physical causes. And so that's what you can expect. So should you be tested? How do you decide if you're pretty sure you have it anyway? Should you go ahead and get the diagnosis? I say yes. If you have significant problems with any of these things I'm about to name, then I think you would want to get evaluated for an ADHD diagnosis. If you are losing or quitting jobs frequently, if at work you're not performing up to your capacity or your ability in your day-to-day tasks, if you have just this inability to do household chores or pay bills on time, organize things, in your relationships, if you're forgetting important things, having difficulty completing tasks, if you get upset over minor issues, other emotional things like experiencing ongoing stress and worry because you don't meet goals, things like that, then I do think it's worth it. It takes the guesswork out and it helps you make sense of your life. I remember when I was diagnosed at, I think I was 41, it was like a light bulb went on in my head. And so many unexplained things in my life finally made sense. And it was a relief to have a name for it. And that's when I want went on this quest to figure out how to work with my ADHD instead of trying to fit into this mold of the neurotypical world. And I created a proven framework that helps people just like you and me become successful with ADHD. And that's my 3P power program, the coaching program: positive, prepared, productive. So if you want to know more information about coaching, just write coaching in the chat, and I will send you a direct message and you can get a free consultation. Okay, another question. I've heard that autism and ADHD are related. Is that true? Autism spectrum disorder and ADHD are related in several ways, but ADHD is not on the autism spectrum. But they do have some of the same symptoms. And having one of these conditions increases the chances of having the other. So experts have changed the way they think about how autism and ADHD are related. The kind of the psychologist Bible is called the DSM. That's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So that's sort of their go-to. And the fourth edition, the DSM-4, said that a person couldn't have autism and ADHD. But the newest version, the DSM-5, which was published in 2013, that does allow for a person to be diagnosed with both. So, so let me back up a little bit, and I'll talk about how the symptoms of autism and ADHD can overlap. Here's a couple of examples. So if a person has trouble paying attention, kids with autism may struggle to pay attention for several reasons. One is that language difficulties can make it seem like kids aren't paying attention to directions, but it may just be that they don't understand the directions. And so trouble paying attention with ADHD is something we're familiar with. But there's some social issues too. Trouble socially. ADHD can affect your social skills, and that can include avoiding eye contact and getting in other people's personal spaces, stuff like that. And sometimes these overlapping symptoms cause, especially a child, to be incorrectly diagnosed. So if you're concerned about a possible misdiagnosis, you need to talk to your child's doctor. You know, and doctors are used to having those kind of conversations, and they can even help you get a second opinion. So having one condition, this is another thing, having one condition increases the chances of having symptoms of the other. And a lot of developmental issues are like that. They're likely to occur together. So for example, we mentioned language issues. Kids with language issues are more likely to have reading disorders. And that's why you have to consider all aspects of a person's developmental functioning. And that includes language, social skills, attention, behavior, mood, academic skills, social skills, how they play, if they're a child, motor skills. So a neuropsychological evaluation and or assessment by a healthcare provider, they're going to look at all of those different areas. So autism and ADHD are related genetically too. A person with autism has a bigger chance of having a close relative with ADHD or another developmental disorder. So they need to do research, more research, to better understand the connection. At least I think so, but because kids with autism and ADHD can have similar signs, and some of the ways to help with one could end up being helpful for the other. For example, kids with both of ADHD and autistic kids would benefit from sticking to a routine, for example, and knowing what to expect. But there are big differences, and there's differences in the type of therapy. Therapy for autism, like applied behavior analysis, that can help with communication skills. It can also help reduce repetitive behaviors, which is one of the hallmarks of autism. But therapy for ADHD is geared towards improving attention and organization, the executive functions in the brain. And it's often paired with ADHD medication, which is not the case with autism. So, that medication may not help kids who don't have ADHD, I guess is what I'm saying. So I know from working with many families that it would help if each condition were neatly separated from the other, but that isn't the reality. So learning more about each one is a good first step towards understanding the complicated ways that they're related. So long answer to that question. All right, another question, what triggers ADHD? So you can't cure ADHD, but you can take steps to manage it. And you may be able to minimize your symptoms by identifying your individual trigger points. And some common triggers include stress, poor sleep, certain foods and additives, overstimulation, and technology. So once you recognize what triggers your ADHD symptoms, and you can make the necessary lifestyle changes to better control those episodes. And I actually did not too long ago, a whole Monday night live training on ADHD triggers. So you might want to scroll back down in the Facebook group and see if you can find that replay. Okay, so I mentioned executive function. One person asked, what is executive function in the brain? So executive function refers to brain functions that activate, organize, integrate, and manage all of the other functions, if that makes sense. So it enables individuals to account for long-term consequences and short-term consequences of their actions, and a plan for those results. And it also allows people to make real-time evaluations of their actions and make necessary adjustments if those actions aren't achieving the desired results. So it's like they're able to evaluate. Planning comes into play there, prioritizing, sequencing, knowing what needs to happen first and next, and then after that. That's all the executive functions of the brain, which in ADHD operate a little differently. Okay, last question. Should I tell my employer that I have ADHD? Short answer, I don't know. Everybody's situation is different. The long answer is the decision to disclose any kind of disability to an employer or not, that can be a difficult decision. It can be a difficult one. So on one hand, an employer is not required to make any special accommodations unless the employee has disclosed the disability. So you can't expect any accommodations unless you say something about it. But on the other hand, discrimination often begins when the employee makes the disclosure. And even though that's not legal, it does happen. And so you have to weigh those factors in before making the decision to disclose. Some reasons not to say anything: if you do not need any accommodations, and if you're performing well on the job, or if you feel like telling about your disability would cause your supervisor and your coworkers to discriminate you, then you may not want to do it. Some reasons that you might choose to bring it up is that if you fear losing your job because you haven't received the accommodations you need to succeed, it's kind of like now or never. You must tell somebody, or else nothing's going to change and you won't be successful. Or if you're about to be fired because of performance issues, then what do you have to lose, correct? You should probably play that last card and go ahead and say something. I've seen in some other Facebook groups and things like that, a lot of people are very upset that some people don't think ADHD is real and they don't understand it. And I would just say fighting that battle is futile. you just waste a lot of emotional energy trying to get people to in the neurotypical world to understand you. They may and they may not. You can bring awareness, but I would not expect special treatment because of your ADHD. You can learn ways to use your ADHD to your advantage, even as your superpower, I like to say. And I can help you with that if you are interested. Just let me know. But you just have to make the decision that you feel like is best for you in that situation. So if you think you need a coach to help you with your ADHD, reach out to me. Just type the word coaching in the comments in the chat, and I will send you a direct message. So be looking for that. And I'll let you know how you can book a free consultation with me, where you can tell me what's going on, and I'll see if I can help. And lastly, and this is very exciting, I want you to save the date. It's Mother's Day weekend, May 7th and 8th. I am hosting another Chaos to Control challenge. And some of you came into this Facebook group through the Chaos to Control challenge. And so if you want to go through again and get a refresher, or if you know somebody that you think that would be helpful for, I'll put the link to sign up in the chat. But it is going to be Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Central, and Sunday evening, 6 p.m. Central. And it's not the same thing. It's part one and part two. So you have to come to both. And yes, there'll be some replays, but it's so much better to come in person. The replays will not be up for very long. So try to mark out time to do that. And I hope you can make it. If you have any comments or questions or other things you want me to answer on these Q&A times, just write that in the chat. I go back and read that, and I'll be glad to follow up. So that's all I have for you all. I hope you have a great Monday evening, rest of your evening, and just a great week. And I'll see you next time. Bye.